Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maitreya Vacha. Devahuti api sandesham Gauravena Prajapate Samyak Shraddhaya Purusham Kutastam Avajad Gurum. Devahuti api sandesham Gauravena Prajapate Samyak Shraddhaya Purusham Kutastam Abhajad Gurum. Word to word translation. Maitreya Vacha, Maitreya said, Devahuti, api, also, Sandesham, the direction, Gauravena, with great respect, Prajapate of Kardama, Samyak, complete, Shraddhaya, having faith in, Purusham, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kutastam, situated in everyone's heart, Habajat, worshipped, Gurum, most worshipable. Translation. Sri Maitreya said, Devahuti was fully faithful and respectful towards the direction of her husband Kardama, who was one of the Prajapatis, or generators of human beings in the universe. O great sage, she thus began to worship the master of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart. So purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This is the process of spiritual realization. One has to receive instruction from a bona fide spiritual master. Kardama Muni was Devahuti's husband, but because he instructed her on how to achieve spiritual perfection, he naturally became her spiritual master also. There are many instances wherein the husband becomes the spiritual master. Lord Shiva also is the spiritual master of his consort, Parvati. A husband should be so enlightened that he should become the spiritual master of his wife in order to enlighten her in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Generally, Stri, a woman, is less intelligent than man. Therefore, if the husband is intelligent enough, the woman gets a great opportunity for spiritual enlightenment. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this cold Sunday morning. But the good news is that we're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading from Canto 3, Chapter 24, Text 5 today. And this is going to be a continued discussion from yesterday as well. And we're going to be talking through some of that and putting it into the context of what we will be discussing with regards to this text today. So stay tuned, stay attentive, and let's have a good discussion here today. So Maitreya is saying that Devahuti is fully faithful and she's respectful towards the direction of her husband Kardama. And who is Kardama Muni? Kardama Muni is a great sage, as we've been reading and hearing. And not only a great sage, but he's also the son of Brahma, and he's also one of the Prajapatis. So on the instruction of Lord Brahma, Kardama Muni took up this very important service of procreation, even though he was a saintly person, he was a mendicant up until now, performing penances, right? And so we've also been hearing about how Kardama Muni has not only entered the Grihastha life, but also has expanded into 9 independent forms. And, he's through Mother Devahuti, he's also the father of 9 daughters. And we're at the juncture where Kardama Muni is saying, okay, I've fulfilled my commitment, dear Swayambhuva Manu and Shatrupa. And Lord Brahma, as I've also explained to you, I would like to go back to being a mendicant. As long as I've completed my duties as a grihastha, I've married Devahuti, who's the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa, and I've also begotten children. So now please let me be on my way and be back to where I was to begin with. So that's where we are at this point in this reading, in this pastime. And so Kardama Muni was getting ready to leave his family and get back to his mendicant way of life, thinking about Krishna, thinking about the Supreme Lord, and being free from all of the, material anxieties of human life, what to speak of Grihastha life. So in our discussion yesterday, we ended the discussion with a question from Lakshmikant Prabhu, who said as to why is it that Kardama Muni wanted to leave the Grihastha, especially knowing that the Supreme Lord was making his personal appearance as his son. And in this text, we also hear that Mother Devahuti is taking to serious worship of the Supreme Personality. So in other words, how did Devahuti, who has been up until now enjoying several years of celestial pleasures with her husband, in this celestial palace that is floating in the air with all of the beautiful maids and all of the help that she's getting, in terms of maintaining the palace and attending to the needs of her husband and, the family. And now she has 9 beautiful children. It's kind of becoming quite paradoxical, right, in terms of why she's making that switch. And the switch is pretty intense and pretty extreme in terms of what she's been experiencing over the last several years. I mean, there's the time is not given exactly, but these are for very, very long years. And now she is switching, making that conscious switch to moving from one of sense enjoyment to one of worship. So this is quite an extreme situation. And like I said, Kardama Muni leaving all of this, his beautiful wife, Devahuti was a very, very beautiful woman and a very chaste woman, a very devoted and a devout wife. She served him to a point that she was even neglecting herself. And Kardama Muni realized, he said, you have normally in this material world, the bodily conception is so important to us, right? We're always thinking about our body, a slight pain here, a slight cut there. We always want to be in a comfortable position, whether we're sitting, standing, cooking, doing whatever we're doing through the day. We're constantly aware of what we're feeling, in the sense, we're thinking about our body, that bodily conception of this is mine, this is, me. All of this is constantly going through us in a voluntary or on an involuntary, basis. So Kardama Muni was also surprised. He was like, how, dear Devahuti, are you able to do this? You're performing such extreme services for me. and unto me, without even thinking about your own body. And she's coming. I mean, she's Swayambhuva Manu's daughter. I mean, obviously, she's of a very elevated, what should I say, class. So seeing her deteriorate, even her body was deteriorating to a point that she was becoming weak and emaciated. And when Kardama Muni saw that, he said, no, this is not right. I have to write this. And so through his mystic powers, he builds this beautiful celestial palace in the air, and with beautiful gardens and flowers and trees and all of that, and begins his married life with her. It's a consensual relationship between Kardama Muni and Devahuti. It's a beautiful relationship, and together they have these 9 children. Okay, so coming back, I mean, even in the movies, there are lots of ups and downs. There's a lot of twists and turns. What to speak of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? As we're reading these various pastimes and we're hearing from our preceptors about these beautiful pastimes of the Lord and his devotees, there's so many twists and turns and many paradoxes. And in this case, this is one such paradox which is so attractive and quite intriguing, right? I mean, when you look at it, when you hear about it and start to think about it, it's quite a paradox. So today's discussion will try and understand what this paradox is, like we just spoke about, and also, what could be the possible reasons as to why, what's the underlying basis as to what is happening here. So again, just to refresh, one part of the paradox is Kardama Muni moving out of Grihastha life, going back to being a mendicant, especially in this circumstance where he's been enjoying these beautiful opulences, being married, having this beautiful palace, having all of this help at home, and having these beautiful children, and on top of that, having a beautiful wife, but most importantly, knowing that the Supreme Lord himself is personally appearing as his son in his family, in his home. And the other part of the paradox is Devahuti, who is enjoying all of this, is now making that conscious switch to the other extreme, where she wants to take association, the spiritual association of her husband, and devote herself to worshiping the Supreme Lord in her heart. So let's address both these questions. Both are valid questions, and see what's happening here, right? As a prelude to Lord Kapiladev's appearance, which is going to happen shortly after this, right? So Devahuti's lamentation was twofold. She was sad, number one, because her husband was not only leaving, but her husband is of a very exalted spiritual stature, right? Kardama Muni was such a phenomenal sage, and his penances were so intense that at this point in time, Devahuti felt like, hey, I've been enjoying the material side of my husband, right? Engaging in all of the sense gratification, but I really haven't leveraged or gained. I haven't taken that conscious association to gain that spiritual knowledge to perfect my life. And secondly, because she was going to be alone after her daughters grew up and got married and left her home, she was going to be all alone. So she was indirectly requesting Kardama Muni with all humility that, my Lord, I really want to seek spiritual perfection, number one. Two, I'm going to be all alone once my daughters leave. So indirectly, she was saying, hey, I need a son. I need a son, someone who can protect me. With you leaving the house, leaving the home, there's no one here to protect me. I need a son. I need a man in the house. So the great sage Kardama Muni then, recognizes, the predicament that she was in, and assured her and said, you know what, you will have the Lord, appear in your womb. So in other words, he tells her that in terms of her spiritual perfection and the knowledge that she needs to be able to get to that, was going to be imparted to her through her son that was going to be shortly coming into the picture as Lord Kapila. And the gravity with which he explains that to her and tells her and convinces her is, it's pretty straightforward. She didn't, sit and argue and say, what if this and what if that? But she actually took that in, recognizing her husband as not only as a higher authority, but also as a spiritual authority. That's the beauty. And we'll get to this. In fact, in this very purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, and I should, remind you again here, Kardama Muni, Srila Prabhupada says, Kardama Muni was Devahuti's husband, right? Right here, where he says Kardama Muni was Devahuti's husband, but because he instructed her on how to achieve spiritual perfection, he naturally became her spiritual master also. So, following Kardama Muni's instructions, Devahuti then began to worship the Lord situated in everyone's heart. Now, these instructions come fully empowered. When instructions come in from the spiritual master, they're not plain instructions or plain words that are strung together in a sentence and say, go do this or this should be done. But instead, these are instructions that are fully empowered. Think about the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. When they were sent to London or to the UK from the US, there was nothing happening there. And the disciples were clueless. They were not only new to the movement, they were new to the philosophy. They were, they were not of Indian origin either. So a lot of the culture was missing. And whatever they learned from Srila Prabhupada in that short period of time. And lo and behold, Srila Prabhupada had these devotees move bag and baggage, which was very little at that point in time, of course, but they had to move from the United States to the United Kingdom, to London, and then start up an ISKCON center. But they did not doubt that, right? I mean, that's the beauty of this. The devotees that went there went with complete faith in their spiritual master's instructions, and they were empowered as a result. So it is very, very, very important that we understand that these instructions are not just instructions, but these are instructions that are fully empowered. And in this case, with the blessings of Kardama Muni, Devahuti was able to make that switch so well and so effectively. Now, keep in mind that Kardama Muni, like I said, had performed years and years and years and years, thousands of years of penances that attracted the Supreme Lord so much that he was endowed with all of these benedictions from the Supreme Lord. So he had these mystical powers with which he could, see the future. He could he could create things out of thin air. Like in this case, he was able to, create this beautiful, massive, celestial palace in the air. It was not even on the ground. It was in the air. It was nothing short of being superhuman, right? He was able to also, restore the lost luster and the bodily features of his good wife, Mother Devahuti. And there are beautiful descriptions given, in terms of how that also happened in the Bhagavatam. So these blessings came with a lot of empowerment, a lot of energy, so to make the switch from being an enjoyer, being engaged in sense gratification, to really switching into selflessly devoting and worshiping the Lord. Now, we've heard from our preceptors, even a moment's association with the pure devotee can completely transform our lives. What to speak of Kardama Muni, right? As the husband, as the spiritual master, as a pure devotee, right? So that explains the second question. I think that kind of helps us understand a little better in terms of, how Devahuti, Mother Devahuti was able to make that extreme switch. Now for the first question. So I started with the second one. Now let's go back to the first question. Let's put that in context, right? Now we all know how consuming Grihastha life is. It's almost like, a moth being attracted to the light of a fire. Once we're in, it's impossible to get out. And again, Grihastha life has a lot of ups and downs, a lot of ups. So don't get me wrong, but it also comes with this environment which completely sucks us into being so consumed in terms of the day-to-day life, taking care of the family, the responsibilities, the attractions, the distractions, and everything else that goes. It's a package deal. It's a package deal. So you can't say, I want just this and not that. Grihastha life comes with a lot of pros and cons. And for those of us who have been in this Grihastha stage and life, we recognize how consuming it can be. It can be very uplifting at times. It can be very frustrating at times. And without getting into the details, the point is that it is consuming. And added to that, when we have children, that attachment grows as they're babies, as they're, slowly, gradually growing into, young adults, and then into adults. And every stage is so attractive. It is so loving. It is so, the attachment only grows. It only grows. So in addition to being attached to the spouse, now there is the additional attachment of the children coming in. All right. And for a father, the daughter is very, very, very special. There's it's not like the son is not special, but the daughter becomes extra special for the father. He has that soft corner for the daughter. And so much so that when the daughter grows up, gets married, leaves the home, and she's gone with her husband to her husband's home, the father is still, he still holds her so dearly in his heart. So daughters are very special to the father, just like the sons are very special to the mother. And in this case, Kardama Muni had not one, not two, not three, but 9 daughters. 9 daughters. 9 daughters. See, and these daughters were very, very, very special as well. Apart from being his own daughters, these daughters were daughters of, from the womb of Devahuti. And Devahuti was of exquisite beauty. So the daughters were also very beautiful. And it is described that these daughters were, each of them was fragrant with the scent of red lotus flowers. So they were not only beautiful, but they were also very pleasant in terms of their smell, the way they carried themselves and everything else. So that would have been an even stronger attachment for any normal human being. All right. So how could Kardama Muni leave all of this and go away? I mean, it's completely detaching himself. It's not like he was going away for a day and coming back, or a week and coming back. He was not doing the usual Monday through Thursday as most of us in the consulting field have been doing. No, in this case, he was actually shutting the doors and out on the other side, never coming back, never looking back. So, not only that, if that is not bad enough, Kardama Muni is completely aware. He's completely aware because he was assured by Lord Vishnu himself that in addition to Swayambhu, Manu, and Shatarupa offering their beautiful daughter Devahuti in marriage to him, he would also be the father of the Supreme Lord who would enter the womb of Devahuti. He would make his personal appearance. He gave him that knowledge. So Kardama Muni was completely aware that the Lord was going to appear in a short period of time in Devahuti's womb, in his home, right? And he was going to be the father of the Lord. And again, the following verses, I don't want to get into that now, but the appearance of the Lord is so special, and he chooses to do it any which way, and he can do it any which way he wants it. He can come out through the nostrils of Brahma, or he can, come out through, the semen of Kardama Muni in this case as Lord Kapiladev. He can come in any different form, any form that he wants, however he wants. It doesn't change who he is. He is the Lord. He's the Supreme Lord. At the end of the day, he said, or at all times, I should say, not even at the end of the day, but at all times, he is the Supreme Lord. Nothing's going to change that. And he has this will, his Ishta Shakti, his, and his Leela Shaktis, which interact in a way that they make it so much more pleasing for his devotees as well. And so these are things that we need to understand, that he is not contaminated like any of us by any of his appearances in this material world. He comes of his own choice, and he comes in the way that he wants to, and he exits as the way he wants to, but nothing changes his being the Supreme Lord, right? He is the Supreme Lord, infallible, untouchable, and nothing changes there. So Kardama Muni was completely aware that the Lord himself was going to be appearing, making his personal appearance. So it's really, really, really a paradox in terms of how, with all of this happening, with all of these attachments, with all of this knowledge, with the Lord himself, I mean, we are trying to perfect our lives, on our spiritual journeys, wherever we are. And for some of us, it's going to take thousands, if not millions, of lifetimes before we get back. Why? Because our goal of perfection is to be able to be in devotional service and to be able to see the Lord. If one has the personal darshan of the Lord, well, it's made. As eternal life is made. And here we have Kardama Muni who's leaving all of that. So this is a very important question, and thank you, Lakshmikant Prabhu. And so the nice thing is that Srila Prabhupada has provided a beautiful, answer to this. In fact, in the same chapter in text 35. So let me see if I can pull that up. Let me know if you can see it. Still trying to figure this out. I hope you can all see it. Lakshmikant Prabhu, do you know if you can, are you seeing it? Are you seeing my screen? In any case, let me read it to you. It may be a little easier if I read it to you. Kardama Muni's example, and again, this is same chapter, Canto 3, chapter 24, text 35. And in the purport, Prabhupada is very clearly explaining Kardama Muni's example is very instructive. For in spite of having the Supreme Personality of Godhead as his son, he left home just to obey the authority of the Vedic injunction. Kardama Muni states here the main purpose of his leaving home, while traveling all over the world as a mendicant, he would always remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart and thereby be freed from all the anxieties of material existence. So this is such an excellent, explanation. So we need to understand that Kardama Muni, even though the Supreme Personality of Godhead was appearing as a son, Kardama Muni was duty bound to respect Vedic authority. And Srila Prabhupada says this is a very, very important lesson. I mean, we need to understand that Kardama Muni, who was already situated in spiritual perfection, didn't really have to go through the Varnashrama. He didn't have to. But he did so to fulfill his prescribed duty on the instruction of his father and spiritual master, Lord Brahma. However, knowing what Grihastha life is about and the dangers that come with it, not only the pleasures, but also the dangers, the risks associated with engaging in Grihastha life, the attachments that we spoke about, and the distractions. Kardama Muni said, okay, dear Lord Brahma, my father, I will do as you say. I will carry out your instruction. I will follow and I will execute that. But I would like to also perform penances in addition to the penances he was performing already. So he had actually done these penances in preparation to move in, to engage in Grihastha life. I mean, that's just amazing sankalpa. I mean, this sankalpa is not like for a moment. We've been told that, before we start chanting, we should. And that is so powerful in terms of aligning our minds, getting away from all the distractions around us and all the time pressures and everything else that is, the noise, the chaos that is happening around us, to be able to move all of that out and just concentrate and focus on what am I going to be doing for the next 16 rounds. I'm going to be chanting and chanting like I mean it, chanting so that I can please Krishna, so that I can remember Krishna, so that I can keep Krishna in my focus and not think about all the millions of other things that pop into our heads every single second. That sankalpa is required for us as we get into or begin our chanting every day. And, every time we're doing our devotional service, obviously, there's a lot happening even at work and wherever we are, whether we're at home, cooking, being with the children, whatever it is. But when our goal, our purpose in life is to be able to engage in devotional service, which is the key to perfection of our life and beyond, it is very important for us to have that sankalpa. That sankalpa should be there as a part of us constantly, reminding us, maybe taking, a shoe and hitting ourselves on our heads to say, remember what you're doing and why you're doing this, right? So we need to remind ourselves, and that sankalpa needs to happen. But thanks to the material energy around us and the modes acting on us and all the baggage that we carry, we're constantly being pulled. We are not always in the, mode of goodness. We're in the mode of passion most of the time. And sometimes we even degrade to the modes of ignorance. So these things are happening. But look at Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni had made this sankalpa and he engages consciously for 10,000 years, not just one or two, but 10,000 years to meditate and request the Lord when Lord Vishnu was so pleased with the penances that he assures Kardama Muni that you will be absolutely fine getting into Grihastha life, and you're not getting just somebody. This is going to be the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa. And Devahuti had already established herself, even at that young age, as being someone who was very, very service-minded, very devout, highly celebrated qualities of a Vaishnavi. And so the Lord assures him that not only are you going to be getting married to, someone like Devahuti, but I personally, Krishna, I am going to be personally coming into your family, into your home, through the womb of your wife Devahuti as Kapiladev, to spread, to spread the knowledge, as to how to gain perfection and the Sankhya philosophy. So Kardama Muni spent 10,000 years doing just that. So it is no surprise that even though Kardama Muni was engaged in married life, in Grihastha life, and enjoying all of these celestial pleasures, and being in the presence of his beautiful wife and his beautiful children, he was still fixed in devotion to the Supreme Lord. So there was that complete detachment. I mean, can you think of a similar analogy in modern times? Yes, Srila Prabhupada is a great example. I mean, if you just think about, Srila Prabhupada on the instructions of his spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada came to the US during the height of the age of hippies and drugs and depravity. It was just a horrible time, in a sense, to be here in the US. What to speak of leaving where he was comfortably situated in Vrindavan, in his Vanaprastha stage at that point, or even to receive these instructions and to follow up on that, and then becoming a sannyasi, to be able to move from that point of spiritual comfort and spiritual assurance that I'm fixed and nothing should really be bothering me as much, to a complete opposite, an extreme situation where he is now in the United States and in a period where everything, so much is going on, and people didn't have a clue as to, at that point in time, especially the hippies, had no idea as to what it meant to even think about what spiritual perfection or even the purpose in life is. But then Srila Prabhupada had spent 40 years in preparation to come to the US and to come to the West to spread the word of Lord Chaitanya on the instructions of his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So you see how the spiritual master's instructions are so powerful. Like I said, they're completely empowering, right? So they empower the disciple, but the disciple also has to take those instructions with complete and implicit faith. Then those instructions can be executed so effectively. And we see how Srila Prabhupada has achieved what he's achieved and left as a legacy for all of us. We're so fortunate, the world over. So this is a very, very important thing to note. Now, and another important contrast that also comes to mind, again, in the interest of time here, is that of Devahuti and Diti. Diti, as we all know, she wanted to have children, just like Devahuti wanted to have children. But in this case, Diti's passion overtook her more goodness, in a sense that she just literally held Kashyapa to being captive, so to speak, and she forced herself on him and said, "No, I want to have a child now." And he kept telling her, "No, this is not the right time. It's a night time. It is not auspicious. It only brings in a lot of inauspiciousness." But she would have nothing of it. Diti still wanted to, engage in procreation at a time when she shouldn't have, and ended up having two demons as her sons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So that is so different in contrast to the way Devahuti and Kardama Muni had Kapiladev. The outcome, and prior to the outcome, the Sankalpa, right? The intent. And they were very, very simple people at heart. They were highly exalted, but very simple people at heart. The descriptions given, as we read the details in each of these texts and purports, they were extremely simple at heart and followed all the Vedic instructions as well. They took it seriously and they followed it to set an example for us in terms of the importance of following those instructions. And they did it so well that it pleased, their preceptors and the Lord himself. And so we find that Lord Kapiladev, the Supreme Lord, entered Devahuti's womb as Lord Kapiladev. Now, the other key point that one must also accept, this is what I was touching on earlier as well, is taking these instructions very, very seriously. Taking the instructions of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. And one must have complete faith in the spiritual master's instruction. I'm repeating myself here only because there will be times when we are tested. There may be circumstances where we may falter this way or that way, not be so sure, if I should be doing this when my spiritual master has told me to do that. Now, when you're inside a well, let's say you're deep inside a well, which we all are in a way, we are all in this Maya, we're so deeply entrenched. So the analogy given is, when one is deep inside a well, the only way to get out is if someone throws you a rope. And that someone, in this case, is the spiritual master. When the spiritual master throws that rope, you can't be saying, "Oh my God, is that a rope or is that a snake?" Instead, you have to accept with complete faith that it is a rope, even if it is a snake. That's the beauty. We have to accept the spiritual master's instructions seriously without, any doubts in our mind. So the spiritual master says, "That's a rope, even though it's a snake, one should pick it up." And if the spiritual master says, "That's a snake, don't pick it up, even though it's a rope," one should follow those instructions. It's not a question of doubting what the spiritual master is saying. This is an example that is, commonly referred, in explaining this. But one should remember that, even looking at the broader picture, the spiritual master is not going to give us instructions that we cannot follow. And like I said, on the other hand, the spiritual master is also giving us the empowerment to execute on those instructions. So therefore, we should take it and move forward. And if you just take a moment and reflect on where, you were, and, even a few years ago, or even before coming to Krishna consciousness, and where we are now, it's just based on the instructions that the spiritual master has given. You see the difference as to where we were and where we are now. That transformation won't have happened, by ourselves. It couldn't have happened. And lastly, the other significant point in this verse is that Srila Prabhupada is saying that, and these are his instructions, saying that a husband should be so enlightened that he should become the spiritual master. Let me go back to that. Yeah, right here. Kardama Muni was Devahuti's husband, but because he instructed her on how to achieve spiritual perfection, he naturally became her spiritual master also. And then he goes on to say, a husband should be so enlightened that he should become the spiritual master of his wife in order to enlighten her in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. A husband should be so enlightened that he should become the spiritual master of his wife in order to enlighten her in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Generally, Stri, a woman or woman, is less intelligent than man. Therefore, if the husband is intelligent enough, the woman gets a great opportunity for spiritual enlightenment. Now, we see a double standard in Kali Yuga. And what is that? The husband, or the man in this case, is always expecting his wife to be chaste and devout, right? But he never feels like he should be the same or he should do the same. Adultery is so common. So if the husband is not the gold standard, then why should the wife be? I mean, it's a fair question, right? But unfortunately, the truth has been distorted in a way where not only is the husband saying, hey, I want to do whatever I want to do, but I still want my wife to be, the best, the most chaste, and so on. But even the converse is also true, where the wife is saying, "Hey, my husband is doing, so why can't I do it? I mean, I'm an equal as well. I'm also earning money. I'm also educated. I'm also, So then there is this question of parity that comes in, which is actually taking, it results in further adultery. It's a horrible situation to be, and that's what Kali Yuga is basically, pushing and providing the impetus for families to break up. You see the divorce rates going up. You see unwanted children. There's, all of these issues that are coming up, adultery, cheating, and all of these things happen because of the environment, the energy, the association. Instead, all of this can be avoided if the husband aspires to take to a higher road in terms of spiritual realization. And if he is enlightened, as Prabhupada is very clearly saying, if he is enlightened spiritually, he can then provide that spiritual enlightenment for his wife as well. And the wife then, should also be open-minded to be able to receive that spiritual guidance. And together, the husband and wife can bring up a good family and, spiritually perfect themselves. And that is uplifting. That is uplifting to all of mankind. If all the couples throughout the world, married couples, do that, then it becomes very uplifting for mankind in general. And it takes us all away from the gross depravity, that exists in the world today around us. I mean, you don't even have to look around. It's just happening there all the time, everywhere. Well, we just have a few minutes left here. I would like to, pause at this time and see if there's any discussion. Okay. If there's no discussion, then I'd like to wish you all a very fun-filled, Krishna-conscious week ahead. Stay vigilant. Hare Krishna.